Hello, hello! Welcome back to Brenda's Books. I'm so glad you are coming back to listen to more of Sara's War. Today we are on Chapter 48. Here we go. Chapter 48. Not the Only One. I wake up to a scorching heat across my cheek. The sun is streaming down directly over my tent. My tent. I sit up with a start. I actually slept well in my tent. But that was because of Jack. I glance at the space next to me, where I can still see the outline of Jack's large frame. A handwritten note on a yellow-lined paper lies in the center. Sara, I wanted to wait until you woke up to leave, but I just got word that there's a war going on outside, so I thought I better go help. Please text me when you wake up. We need to talk. I put my number in your phone. I trust you won't give it out. Otherwise, I'll get complaints all day long. See you soon, pretty lady. Jack. P.S. I took this piece of paper from your journal notebook, but I promise I didn't read any of it. I smile wide as I fold up the piece of paper. I spot my journal notebook next to my pillow and put Jack's note inside one of its pages. I reach over my sleeping bag and grab my military clock from the top of my duffel bag. 1407 hours. What? It's afternoon? I slept past noon. I slide down on top of my sleeping bag to where my shoes lay. Then I notice I'm only wearing one of Jack's hunting socks. Great. Now I owe Jack everything in the world, plus a sock. I tear off the solo sock and stuff my hand inside my duffel bag until I find my own pair of clean folded ones. As quickly as I can, I slip my socks and shoes on and grab my lab jacket from off the tent floor. My tent zipper is stuck, but I manage to undo it without too much trouble. Once outside, I scroll through my contacts and find Colonel Haskins near the top. Now that the day is half gone, I'm awake. Where do you want me to meet you? I send the text, then stare at the clear blue sky. I love the sky. And this fresh air? I've definitely been cramped in the bomb shelter for far too long. I hear a ding and read Jack's response. I'm close. Head southwest and I'll see you in a minute. Sure enough, in less than 30 seconds, I spot Jack's tall figure coming around the camouflaged aid truck. He's wearing his regular camo and big brown army boots. He has several guns and a walkie-talkie strapped to his belt. He flashes me a bright smile, and I realize it's in response to my own wide grin. Hey there, pretty lady, he says before he reaches me. Are you ready to join us here on Earth? I'm so sorry, I mumble. I had no idea I would sleep that long. You turned off my alarm, didn't you? Jack nods. I sure did, and there's no reason to apologize. We both stare at each other for one awkward, silent moment. So, what did you need to talk to me about? Jack swallows hard. I've got good news and bad news. Let's get the bad over with. Jack holds his breath and grimaces. He looks out to the trees and lumpy knolls while he speaks. Your nurses did report you, and I have no choice but to request you be transferred back to Big Rock. His words hit me like a falling boulder. My mouth runs dry and my stomach sours. Of course they reported me. How could they not? A long minute passes before Jack meets my gaze again. I'm so sorry. I would do something if I could. Actually, I was tempted to let it slide since... You can't do that, Jack. You can't cut corners for me. Jack's smile is sad. I knew you would say that, and you're right. Also, I really do think it's best if you took care of yourself for a while. I know you're used to taking care of everybody else, but you need some care too. You took pretty good care of me last night, I note, blushing as the words escape my lips. Jack smiles sadly again. He stares at me like he's dying to say something, but he stays silent. So what's the good news? I ask. Jack lifts his eyebrows as I break him out of his thoughts. The good news is, none of this changes how highly I think of you. Hey, don't look at me like that. Also, I'm going to get you back before you know it. He clears his throat. As my doctor, I mean. Well, I appreciate that. I shift my body to face opposite of the tree-infested hills and out past the plethora of army vehicles to the open terrain, which looks dry and scorched from the heat. Kinda like my soul. Jack shifts to stand beside me. "You're not the only person who has reactions to trauma, Sara," Jack says, keeping his eyes on the desert scene. "I mean it when I say I won't find a better doctor than you." My heart sings at this compliment, but it's a fat overstatement. I let a big gush of hot wind pass by before I answer. "I'm a good doctor," I agree. "It's everything else that I can't handle." Jack puts a hand on my shoulder. "Let me help you with that part." I pivot to face him again, causing his arm to fall. "I don't want to be a burden to you, Jack." Jack frowns. "You are the one person who knows about everybody's baggage, and that has to be a huge burden, especially with all the complications it brings," I continue. "I don't want to be a part of that." Jack takes a deep breath. He looks out at the hills again, then back to me. "You know, there are very few people who give any thought for my burdens." "Well, I care about you," I blurt out, "and everyone else is too terrified of you to realize they care." Jack cracks a smile. Then he crouches down a little so that his face is in front of mine. "I care about you too," he tells me, "and last night was the first time you let me do anything about it, and it wasn't a burden." I shift in place, stifling another moan. "You have no idea how humiliated I am, Jack. Here you are, perfectly stable and stoic, and you had to put up with me all night long." Jack glances down at the ground, then back up at me again. His voice is more urgent than normal. "Sara, do you really think I have never had a breakdown before?" All I can do is stare at him as I'm completely shocked by this confession. "Don't you think the things I've seen in this war have affected me just a little bit? Like when a soldier dies because he obeyed one of my orders? I've killed countless people in this war, Sara. How many do you think I've cried over?" Again, I just stare at him. "Every single one." "I'm so sorry, Jack," I whisper. "I don't want you to feel sorry for me," he says. "I want you to forgive yourself for being human, just like you would forgive anyone else." I'm at a loss for words. This man knows me so well. How did that happen? Jack inhales a deep breath and releases it slowly. "Anyway, your convoy leaves tomorrow at 0700 hours. You'll be traveling with another large company." "I'm leaving tomorrow?" "Unfortunately," Jack says, his mouth grim. "What's worse, the Daggered Rose will be part of your convoy. But," he says, holding up a hand, "they will be the first vehicle of about 30. You will be near the end. And they'll be tied up with a lot of guards nearby. It will be nice to finally have them in prison." "Wait," I say, shifting my feet. "I thought you said they were leaving today." Jack grimaces. "There's always complications with these guys. I had your head nurse pack a truck full of medical supplies and equipment that will need to be dropped off at Perkstock. Apparently they have next to nothing there, and your head nurse, what's his name again? Randy Reynolds. Nurse Reynolds told me you have double of everything." I nod. "We do." Jack grabs both my hands again. He looks surprised he did so and tries to pull away, but I squeeze them tight before he can let go. "What is it?" I ask. "I promise you'll be safe. We have safety protocols everywhere for this convoy." I nod. "I trust you." Jack beams. "That may be the best thing I've heard all day." I squeeze his hands again, then let them go. "Unless there's an emergency, I'll be there to see you off." I nod and frown. I can't believe this is happening. "Hey," he says, reaching up to brush my hair off my forehead. "This is just temporary. I promise I'll get you back." This time he doesn't add, "as my doctor," and I wonder if he notices. "I hope so." Jack pulls his phone out of his inside jacket pocket and looks at it briefly. "I really need to go. A lot of people are counting on me ordering them around," he says with a smirk as he slips his phone back in place. "Only because they trust you," I tell him. Jack's lips curl up a tiny bit, his eyes glowing. "Ah, come on, I did everything right," says a voice behind Jack. I peer around him to see Nate and Lexi striding into view. Yeah, says Lexi. You're brilliant at everything. Nate playfully nudges her shoulder with his. I knew you'd see that eventually. Hardy har har, Lexi says, as she shoves Nate back in the same playful manner. I forgot, Jack says to me, without turning around to look at them. These two wanted to see you before you leave. Before I can decide if that's good or bad, Lexi catches me watching them. Hey, Doc! What's up, Doc? Nate says, in an almost spot-on impersonation of Bugs Bunny. I stifle a groan, and Jack shoots me a look that could mean a dozen different things. You going to be okay with this dynamic duo? I've got it covered, I tell him with a small smile. Jack smirks, but gives my arm a comforting squeeze. See you soon, pretty lady, he says with a wink. And that concludes Chapter 48. Setting up for exciting things to come. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you come back next Thursday for Chapter 49, which is called Come On, Miss America. And in this chapter, you will find out why Nate got beat up, and some other fun stuff. If you want to find out more about Brenda's books, you can visit brendasbooks.net. Until next time, take care.